What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I have a special guest with me, and he is going to help explain travel stipends, travel awards, how it's changed from last year, his opinions on it, and even some tips and advice on you going for these kind of awards and stipends for traveling to ICs. So Rahul, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit why you're suited to talk about this topic?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Luke. My name is Rahul. I finished in the top 16 for the past two seasons for North America stipends, and the first season, or not stipends, for the Worlds, and the year before, I fell just short due to the mid-season rule change after having a phenomenal year by all standards. So I've been through the grind a couple of times. I've seen it change here and there, and I kind of know what to expect, and I have strong opinions on some things, and this is one of them. So
Cool, great. So we're going to start with explaining how the travel award system or travel stipend system worked for the 2018-2019 Pokemon TCG season. So this is the season that just ended with Worlds.
So I'm going to go a little bit further back, Luke, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
Where the first season where they had the travel award system, I think it was right after San Fran Worlds, was when they introduced it. It was the most snowball year by far because the top four got 500 points, and they just said, we're going to do the cumulative. So whoever is at the top four for cumulative will get the travel award, and 5 through 16 get the stipend. So things didn't change at the top, and it became one massive snowball of if you were doing well for the beginning of the year, you stuck doing well for the end of the year.
Yeah.
So it did not allow new players to enter in. Last season was one of those seasons where they introduced for the first time, they broke the snowball to some extent. They said, we're going to do quarterly stipends, which was a cool idea in theory, but in practice ended up being the same faces with one or two new faces mixed in, which is all we can really ask for, right? You expect to see the same players at the top no matter what happens. So the quarterly stipend system worked as if it would be like last year was a little bit stranger. This year's a little more clean because it would be like the quarter would end at a weird point in time, like a week into like an IC, like right after the IC. So there'd be like a weird segment where you could do like two things of cups or like two things of challenges, but that's like one of those weird things that we don't really need to talk about.
Yeah.
I think because that's just strange.
The calendar
and
was
nobody
just
really
kind
exploited that.
Weird, yeah.
The calendar was a little bit staggered, which they fixed up this year, which thank God. But it was a quarterly stipend system. So each quarter, the top 16 players would receive a set amount of money or a trip to go to the next potential IC. So from the year before, the following back half of the quarter four of the 2016 or 17-18 season, they took the top 16, first through fourth earn a travel award. And for those, I've had a lot of questions about this. So for those of you, a travel award is either a flight for you and an adult if you're under 18, and you get $1,000 to get a hotel, which is a pretty good deal. Or, in my opinion, which you could do every single time for a smarter, easier way, is you get $2,500 outside of country or $2,000 in country. Which is, I think you can almost always plan a trip out for less than that.
Yeah.
And pocket the rest.
Yeah.
And then a stipend is just the 5th through 16th places. And for 5th through 16th, that just entails $1,000. Flat rate, nothing. But you have to attend the event to even get this.
Right, yeah. You can't just get the $1,000.
Yeah, and the travel award system is a little more complicated because you'll be emailed release forms and all these things to like make sure that you are saying, I don't want the trip, I want the cash, or I want the trip, I don't want the cash. So the travel award system is a little more formal. For the stipends, it's a little more just like, hey, you showed up, you got your money. 4 to 6 weeks later, you just end up with $1,000 in your account.
Yeah.
So in the last year's season, we had the quarterly system, which did incentivize some players who normally would not have been able to travel to Australia, Brazil, all these places to go because they had a pretty stellar first quarter, and that was aided by the Nashville Open. The Nashville Open being able to count towards the overall scheme of things let players like Darren O'Meara, Justin Kulas even, and a couple of these other players travel to Australia. Isaiah Williams also even. Isaiah Williams would not have been able to travel without the stipend.
Yeah, that he got from the Open, right?
That he got from the Open,
like
right?
Points from the Open that helped.
Points from the Open helped out. He had a pretty mediocre first half of the season, we can all talk about. But then Isaiah made his claim to this year's season by winning OCIC, which he would not have been able to attend without having. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where it did what Pokemon, I think, or TPCI intended it to do by introducing new players into the existing grind. But So that was pretty much how the travel award system worked for last year. Each quarterly, and it looks like we're following that into this season as well, with it being quarters again, but the quarters and the calendars match a little more, where it'll end as soon as the IC weekend is over, which leaves a lot less confusion. So like, for example, when I go to LATAM and play in Brazil, as soon as the finals conclude on Sunday, that is when like the hard stop deadline, like at midnight that night, is the hard stop deadline for points being entered in, and those top 16 will get the stipend to go to Australia, and then we start again,
and so forth. Yeah. So let me just clarify this. So quarter 4 from 2018-2019 is what counts towards your first stipend for this season, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And Pokemon has done a pretty decent job of putting something on the back end server so you can actually track that on the leaderboards, which is kind of cool.
Cool. Okay, so I think you explained that really well. I understand more now, so hopefully the viewers will also understand more. Especially if you came into this video not knowing anything, now you know a fair amount of what goes on in the race for stipends. So, Rahul, next, could you discuss any issues you had with this system? Or if not direct issues, anything that you would like to have seen improvements upon?
I think last year, the biggest issue, like everything last year felt fine besides the skewed calendar slightly, because I think, yes, at the beginning there was a little bit of concern that the players who played in day 2 got Jack Squad, and the players who played in the Open got a head start, but the system kind of balanced itself out. Like everybody who we expected to do well, Jimmy, Azul, Pram, me, like these guys rose back to the top and got their stipends.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that because of the Open, all of a sudden we were at a disadvantage. It was simply that we had new people who could contest us for one of the stipends.
Yeah.
And the fact that we already had an existing stipend to attend Latin America and they couldn't, left so many points on the table that we earned that they couldn't get. Because ICs are, at the end of the day, the bread and butter for what will fuel you to the next stipend.
Yeah.
You could win, you could like get top 32 at 2 regionals, or I could go get top 64 at 1 IC, and all of a sudden I've earned 10 more points than you have in those 2 regionals.
Yeah, and the ICs will usually have less attendance than the regional you got top 32 at, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the only ones that I think are bigger, potentially speaking, is Europe can be a given that it'll be bigger, and same with NA.
Yeah.
LATAM is somewhere between 600 and 700, but that's kind of we just figure that out as we go. And OCIC is just tiny. It's like 300-ish. So that was the issue last year, and that got pretty shored up, fixed up. They did a good job. But then there was 1 step forward, 2 steps back with this season, where they, as far as we are concerned at the current moment, it'll be 8 cups and 8 challenges that are counted per quarter into the overall scheme.
Okay, so now let's segue into that. So, to the best of your ability, because no one exactly has concrete information and proof and exact knowledge of how this is going to work, but explain how you believe the travel stipend system is working for the 1920 season.
I think everything is staying the same from last year, like almost to the T, besides the fact that last year we had a BFL of 2 cups, 2 challenges per quarter, and that existed for stipends as well as the overall, year.
Championship points per quarter, right? The
Yes.
BFL for championship points and the BFL for championship points going towards the stipend.
Yeah, and
so,
there was a couple of like weird staggers where like.
Right. Okay.
And so leading into this season, we have a best finish limit of 8 cups and 8 challenges for the season that go towards your overall championship point total.
Right. So we have no quarterly cap for CP.
Yeah. So you guys
purposes.
can earn them all now, earn them all later. Like that's just going for your invite. But if you're going for a stipend, now you're playing in a rat race where someone like I'm going to use Jose an example because I love Jose and it doesn't mind if I use him. In Florida, we have like 3 to 4 challenges per week because of our density of stores.
Yeah.
And we have every weekend without fail it'll be double cup.
Yeah.
There's no like our TOs are very, very well organized. They make sure we have a double cup almost every time. They don't overlap with regionals. They are here for the players. But this means that Joe Schmo from, let's say, Nebraska, who has like 2 challenges and like maybe 3 cups per quarter, doesn't have the same opportunities as Jose.
Right, yeah.
It also means that someone like Little Timmy, who lives in Idaho and has 5 challenges and he's the only junior there and has 5 cups and he's the only junior there, auto wins these 5 every time.
Yeah.
Which is going to cause a potential problem per quarter because now I'm not going to say not the more deserving players will get it, but it'll introduce new people to the race, right? But it is introducing players into the race that are earning their way there without proving that they are the better player on a global scheme, which is what I think the stipend system should aim to do.
Yeah, or it can just be players that are good but also happen to be in a good spot of the country for cups.
Yeah, let's put it this way. Like, say I get top 4 at regionals, right? But I don't have the same access to the same cups and challenges as somebody else. And let's say I'm going to use Kika as an example. Say Kika has his like plethora of New York Cups and challenges.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Kika gets a stipend without doing anything at regionals, and then I have top 4 at regionals, but I have like maybe 2 cups, 2 challenges, and I don't get a stipend. Does that mean I'm less deserving of a stipend? No. And I'm one of those faces that say people would like to see attend these big ICs. Like Pokemon is trying to build, I think, a culture of top players like Magic and other things where like we have a fan base and like everyone knows Azul. Like the videos have been out. Azul has a video. I have a video. Tord has a video. Natalie, like these are the players that everyone watches from home, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit backwards in that logic, but it's very chaotic because I think if they just kept it to 2-2, it would make it a lot more fair.
Yeah. I think at the beginning people expected it to be an error. Like I saw a lot of discussion about that. We have a best finish limit of 8 and 8 per the season, so they just haven't fixed that for the quarters yet.
Yeah, we're still hoping it's an error.
So we're hoping that. So you kind of already touched on this. Any issues you have with this year's system, as far as we know, and anything you would like to see TPCI improve upon. Do you see any positives, negatives?
Okay, I mean, I'm gonna like cut back into this a little bit because I will give the general populace opinion, and I'm gonna give you my honest opinion also on this on the whole stipend situation because I think the general populace opinion, and I stand by that. I think that as a general populace member and someone who wants to grow the community, the stipend system is a little bit whack. And for someone who's like a freshman in college who thinks he's a good player, like say Xander Perot, even though Xander has the means to travel, say he can't go because he doesn't have the stipend. Yeah. But Xander did well at regionals, but he can't go to cups because of classes or something. It now becomes a limiting factor for this player to chase top 16, which I don't think should be the thing. I think you should be able to prove yourself at regionals and ICs, and that should be what matters more than anything for stipends, rather than the local scene. But I'm also going to give you my opinion on why I think this is a good thing for someone like me.
Right.
And I'm saying this not in like a crude way or anything, but like as a pure competitor, this is fantastic for me.
Right.
Because this causes chaos. And chaos in a system where we don't know how many spots are going to be available up for grabs. We know 16 is up for grabs. We don't know like who the set runners are in this race makes it all the more better for me. Because someone like say for example yourself, Luke, you earn a stipend the first trip to Australia. You get to go to Australia. You don't have the best performance in Australia. Now all of a sudden you're less inclined to go to Berlin.
Right.
And you're more content to just sit on your 500 and chill, right? Yep. But that's one less stipend that could be going to someone who was going to attend all 4 anyway.
Yeah.
That's going to cause it's going to cause a very like 99 percentile, 1 percentile riff. Like someone like myself, Sam Chen, where money isn't the object in chasing this thing, as you can tell by the amount of special events and stuff I go to.
Right.
Like money isn't the object. My end goal is top 16. I want to win worlds and give myself the best shot to win worlds.
Yeah.
So chaos becomes amazing for me because even if I don't get a stipend to like Australia, I'm still going to go. Both years I went to Australia so far, I didn't go with the stipend.
Okay.
I found a cheap enough flight. It was like 700-ish, which is, not bad for Australia especially. And I went because for me, top 16 was the end goal. It didn't matter the means it took me to get there. Money wasn't the issue. But I know for like freshman year Rahul in college, money would have been an issue.
Yeah.
So freshman year Rahul college, like would not have been able to attend the same things and have the same opportunities. So I see both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Where like I know for me this is incredibly beneficial due to the chaos that's going to be raised, but it's also detrimental in the terms of growing the game and seeing the same faces over and over again.
Yeah, so you have this head start, right? So from already having the first stipend from last year. And another thing I wanted to talk about was so like you were saying, someone like Xander Perot, he's in college. What if he doesn't have the time or money or means or stipend to go? But what if he would go if he got the stipend? Let's say someone like him goes and wins AC regionals. If he just wins regionals and then spends every other weekend studying for college,
he still won't get the stipend.
He won't get the stipend, even though he won an 800 or so person regional, which really sucks in my opinion.
I will use one of last year's things as an example. I think numerically, going into the Berlin stipend, for top 4, Jimmy Pendarvis went in with a shockingly high lead. Jimmy had won 2 regionals, or maybe even 3 in this stretch.
Yeah.
And so undisputedly, Jimmy should have earned a top 4 travel award.
Yeah.
But I went to some SPEs, bodied some people.
Yeah.
So that's technically considered regionals points. Is it the same difficulty as regionals? Absolutely not.
Not even close.
not even close. I'm not playing against the best in the world. I'm doing what I believe is smart to earn my stipend and my points. At this point, I was just playing for an invite. I just wanted to play. For reference, I took the first 3-4 months of the season to just relax, but I just hated the complacency that I had with myself. So for me, top 16 was my goal at the end of the year always. So I was like, why not? And I did it. So that's when I did a couple of things, and then we had Danny, who had a pretty solid run. So Danny, got his top 4 stipend. But because I did well, Danny did well, and 2 other, Jose, I think, was one of the others, and somebody else. And
maybe
Jimmy
Azul.
just did. Maybe, yeah, probably Azul or Prem. But because Jimmy didn't earn any points at OCIC, even though he won 2 to 3 regionals, he didn't get a top 4 stipend or travel, which is shocking to me. That's how and he didn't go to cups after that because he didn't think he needed to go to cups and challenges, and I wouldn't have gotten to cups or challenges. I won 3 regionals. Why the hell do I need to go to these things?
Yeah.
It's just locals they're good to grow the game, and you do need to see top players go to challenges and cups, but going to this many will lead to burnout.
Yeah, so let's say that there are 18 people chasing top 16, and 16 of them all go to 8 cups and 8 challenges each quarter and get a first or second at all of those. That forces the 17th and 18th runners to also do that, or just drop out of the race pretty much.
It's a prisoner's dilemma. It's the same thing with SPEs, right? If everyone in top 16 agreed to not go to any SPEs and play fair, quote unquote fair, we would see that. But because I know that somebody else will do it, I will also do it.
Right.
And in this prisoner's dilemma, I am the guy who will do it. And I'm not ashamed to admit that.
Yeah.
I know what, since I was a kid, I've been taught one thing: work smart, not hard. And why would you work harder for something that you need to? I'm not going to go to a 800-man regionals and try to get top 4. I mean, I'm going to, but I'm not going to try to get top 4 and expect it every time. But if I go to a 23-man SPE in Mexico, I can expect a top 4.
Yeah.
I know what I'm capable of. And when you get to a big regionals like that, variance is definitely a big thing.
Absolutely. The best players in the world don't make day 2 at regionals sometimes.
Yep.
Plenty of times.
You're playing Russian roulette at a regional sometimes. Sometimes you sit across the table from Quad Frost Last and your day's over. Yeah. And sometimes you sit across the table from the matchups you expected and you're in day 2.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
So it's just one of those things where it's the system is inviting global travel, which I think is good for the game. Because when I go to SPEs and stuff, at first I expected to be greeted poorly. And a lot of negativity from the players because I'm taking invites out of their system effectively.
Yeah.
I'm literally taking these people's invites. I'm literally taking their championship points.
Yeah.
It's not an if and or but thing. I'm just taking an opportunity away from other players to compete in Worlds. But and I feel terrible about that. But at the end of the day, I'm doing what's best for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's shocking how many of the players actually there are very thankful for top players coming out and playing against them, and just talking to us, because a lot of them, even if they're on their invite, they don't have the monetary means to travel to Worlds. For example, LATAM had 200 something invites this year, and I think only 50 to 100 showed up.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. But I've made a lot of friends in those countries, and it's not through just hanging out and talking like we would here, because there's definitely a language barrier. It's through sitting across the table from each other and showing you what you're worth.
Yeah.
In an old-fashioned game of Pokemon, and afterwards, they already have respect for you, but I gain respect for them as players after we play a game.
Yeah, I think it's important to grow the global circuit, like you said, Magic does, and Hearthstone makes huge deals about the global circuit as well. Pokemon is definitely starting to, and influencing players to travel to all the ICs. My question that kind of goes off of that, do you
Sure.
think top 16 is enough for NA, or do you think more players should be getting some type of award or stipend to travel, even if it wasn't top 16 for the instant day 2 at the end of the season, the quarterly stipends to travel to more ICs? Do you think there more than top 16 would be appropriate?
I think for stipends, no. I think it's fine.
Okay.
Because I think it's 16 across every region, including because discluding the final numbers. Even LATAM gets 16, even Europe gets 16. It's not even 22 for them. So like, I think 16 across the board is a very consistent number.
Okay, cool.
And I feel like that's universally acceptably fine.
Yeah.
Because that like leaves like room for certain players to pop off and have more opportunities. But like something as small as 8, I think, is wrong.
Okay, yeah.
But something as big as like 20, I think, is also wrong because now you have money being wasted, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you're creating more of a tension in the overall top 16 race or whatever. So it should be kind of synonymous to what your end game is. With for NA, it's top 16, so it's like a perfect end game. Like it's very synonymous.
Yeah.
But also like on that topic, I think this year, because from what I understand and what I believe, top 22 has always been Europe because it's kind of been grandfathered in because they lost so many nationals, and national championships used to award them a trip to Worlds.
Okay.
Winning a nationals in some top 2 would give you a trip to Worlds, and that was like they had a bunch of countries, you know, and this was their means to Worlds because otherwise they couldn't really afford it, right? To come to the US. But now that Worlds is there in Europe, in London, I think the system should have been flipped to 16 them, 22 us. Not because I think 22 US players deserve buys into day 2, no offense to some of the players, but I think it helps 6 additional players travel to Worlds.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the purpose of the stipends, in my opinion. At the end of the year, World stipends.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like I said, I don't diminish the skills of any of the players who snuck in at the bottom. Like, Tord got 21st in Europe this year, the top 4 Worlds. Like, Bakari was, like, 15th, I think, got top 32 Worlds this year. Like, I don't diminish any of these players. Like, they did what they had to do to get there. But I think the stipends should be flipped for this particular season just because of London versus NA for Worlds. And that is, but they've already locked in, they already have it on the page saying that's like 16, 22. So
yeah,
that's not something it's in our control.
Yeah, for sure. But I definitely like to hear that opinion and see what you have to think as a top 16 chaser as opposed to myself, who is a 500 and chill.
Yeah.
So my last major question for you is, what would your ideal travel stipends system look like? If we haven't already discussed that, what would your...
I don't think I hit on that yet, no.
What would your ideal... what would your ideal travel stipends look like?
Cups regional's gone. Just completely eliminated from the top 16 for stipends. Maybe even for the year, honestly. Because I'm sure there's something in the back end that can code and calculate your points purely without cups and challenges.
Oh, so cups and challenges or cups and regionals?
Cups and challenges.
Oh, okay.
So like cups and challenges still count towards the overall invite, I think, because that would really just screw a lot of local players.
Yeah. And cups and challenges would have 0 attendance.
They would just die. Yeah. So like, for example, like for you, Luke, you get your cups, you get your challenges, but then when you look at your overall, like where do I rank in terms of the top 16 race? Say maybe you got 300 local points and 200 from regionals, you have only 200.
Yeah.
Whereas like someone like Jimmy, who won 4 regionals last year and didn't give too much attention to his locals, isn't being punished for not going to cups and challenges.
Right.
So it rewards players for high level regional play and IC play, and doesn't dissuade and doesn't punish them, for not going to locals. Because I know for a fact that I stopped going to like cups and challenges quarter 3, quarter 4 because I felt comfortable where I was. But if not, like it brings a lot of pressure on me to like show up to these cups and challenges, create the environment of people being like, hey, why are you here, Rahul? You have like 1,800 points. I need these points for my invite. And like, these guys are my friends. These are people that I know. And I don't want to be the guy who takes away their invite. But I also know that like, I'm playing for myself. So it's like a very double-edged like morality sword that gets brought up. And it kind of sucks. So
in this ideal, the cups and challenges would not count towards stipends. But would they count towards the end of the year, top 16?
No, I don't want them to do that either.
Okay.
I think you just eliminate them entirely from that particular equation, because I think stipends and stuff can be calculated without having that in them.
Right.
But I think you still, like I said, you have to have them for the invite.
So do you think that would cause in my mind, that would cause the issue of top players or like top 16 chasers not attending cups and challenges anymore?
It is, yeah. I mean,
but do you think these such players like yourself kind of deserve a break since you're traveling to 14 regionals and 4 ICs and then worlds?
I think, yeah. I mean, I would love a break. Like, breaks are the biggest. I'll touch back up on the break thing real quick, but I think maybe there's like a middle ground solution where like you still have the BFL of 8 or whatever still count towards the top 16 at the end, but not for stipends or something. You know,
that sounds perfect.
Or you still have them come, but it's not like they have to go to 32 for the year basically, or more because they do bad.
Yeah, or just come back down to the 2 and 2.
Yeah, 2 and 2, like something like that would still be fine. I think that's absolutely acceptable in my mind. Neither extreme is taken here, but you're in the middle ground. And as far as a break is like, Alex Shemansky, for those of you who don't know, put out a big post the other day on Facebook, right before Worlds, talking about why it's amazing to be in the spotlight as a top player, but why it's also emotionally and mentally taxing. And the TLDR of the post was basically like, in Pokemon, I'm somebody. In my daily life, I'm sure I'm somebody to my parents, I'm somebody to my friends, but like I don't go out onto the streets and get like recognized. I'm just Rahul Reddy. I'm just a guy. But in Pokemon, I walk around and I'm Rahul Reddy. I'm a big deal.
Yeah.
And like not as I'm cocky or anything, but like people stop me, people like ask me questions. Like I have worked to this point in my career where I think like I have done a lot of things to like earn the respect of the community, and I think I've done a pretty good job of that. But also at the same time, it also invites, like, the spotlight is fantastic, like I said, and like Alex said in his post. But the thing that leads to the biggest burnout is the expectations we have on ourselves. And not only the expectations we have on ourselves as players, but the expectations the community has for us as players. So one bad regional, and all of a sudden I'm already in my own head. I already know I'm in my own head, because even though I go to 14 or 15 of these, one bad regionals means, like, I've wasted money. I'm already going to so many that failure isn't an option, more or less. Like, we've developed this like culture where for top players, failure isn't an option. Like when DDG this season, as much as like I want to discredit them, they had an insane run this season.
Oh yeah,
undisputed best like consecutive run. So like every time DDG did poorly at a tournament, people were waiting.
Yeah,
which it's not a mentality that we should be fostering.
Yeah, I saw a ton of that on Twitter and Facebook and stuff. Or especially Twitter, because that's more of on Facebook when you post it, you're posting it in a forum of 12,000 people or whatever.
Yeah.
But on Twitter, you're just posting it to your followers, and they're like hashtag DDG lose and stuff like that. And I would reply and be like, just because they are consecutive, they're good players working their asses off to create these secret decks that they have no. Like, you have no privilege. Yeah, they have no obligation to leak these decks to you, and shouldn't be like criticized for creating these monsters of control decks. And they deserve to win if they play correctly and use these really skillful decks.
It's one of those things where it's like we're fostering a culture where like we put our top players on a pedestal, which I love, but we're also doing something where like if a top player messes up at one event, they're being shredded to pieces.
Yeah.
Or a small mistake on stream or something. Remember, we're all people too. Like, so like something like that is what leads to burnout. My harshest critic is myself, and I know that. And a lot of the time, I like how the community is there to hold me accountable to my standards, but there's a limit to some things, and that'll lead to the burnout. And that's why top 16 gets so tough, because every tournament, even a League Cup, even a challenge, it's on your mind. You know that if you mess this up, people are looking at you. Your competitors are looking at you. The community is looking at you. And that's where it starts to eat away at you. I did it in the back end of 16-17, and every tournament was so difficult towards the end of the season. It was my first, like, I didn't decide to go for it until like the mid-season rotation or whatever, because I had top 8 at 4 regionals, top 16. I had like an insane year by all standards.
Right.
And I was like right outside of the bubble, because I had not gone to ICs, and I didn't go to cups or anything, because I was, I had my invite. But that pressure is just something that can't be understated. That's why at the back end of 17-18, so many of the players that were in the race bowed out. Frank took a whole year off Pokemon pretty much because of this. Like it just eats away at you.
Oh
like,
yeah, I've seen that.
Like Ryan Allred, like he didn't get it, but he chased and he chased hard, and everyone made fun. Like I respect Ryan as a player, and Ryan knows his limits too. But everyone in the community is saying that Ryan didn't belong in the top 16 race because he would make day 2 at like 8:01 and then get only top 32. He knows that he's having a bad day. He knows he like screwed up. Like you guys don't need to tell him.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things that like, it's one of the few things that like irritates me because these players like myself already know what's on the line. We know what we're playing for, and it's just an added level of like stress that it's brought on. Like Christopher literally went to go judge for a year. Ryan took a year off to save up money. I don't even know if he's going to come back because he's enjoying life.
Yeah, those are good examples though. And I think unless you have any other things to add to the travel stipends, I think that might be a good place to end.
Yeah.
So yeah, in review, I think we covered the previous year's systems, the current year's system as we believe it to be, the issues, and your ideal changes in the future. And I like the view from the top player and what it's like to be a top player there at the end.
Yeah, it's if you're going for a stipend, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. But just remember, don't push yourself too hard.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the year, Worlds is what matters for you. And so if you're going for top 16, I know like Will Jenkins burnt out a little bit at the end too, before Worlds. It's just do what you got to do, and like sometimes just like play your tournaments, and if it naturally falls into your lap, you take it and run with it.
Yep. Yeah, it seems very difficult to do without the starting IC.
And I mean, there's probably like maybe like 10, 15 players on my fingers that I can count that are going to be like, sit down, start the season, go, I'm going for top 16, and I think they can get it if they have good results. But not everyone can do that. Right. So like, as a regular player, when you sit down and you're like, I'm going for top 16, set your expectations realistically.
Yep.
And that's all I can ask you guys to do, because like I said, when you put that pressure on yourself, tournaments get a lot less fun. Yeah,
for sure. All right, man. I think we put some pretty good information into this video. I hope the viewers enjoy it. If you have any shout outs, go ahead.
Shout out to you for having me. I appreciate you letting me have a platform to talk about this, even though I could have done it on my own, but it feels easier to do it on someone else's. That segue, my own. I shout out to ARG, sponsored by them. They're dope. TC Evolution's sick dice. Check them out. And then I have my own Twitch, my Twitter, and my YouTube. They're all just the Flea, THEFL, and then 4 E's. I'm streaming more regularly. YouTube, don't hold me accountable to shit. I don't want to do it. I'll put out videos that I believe in. I'll try to put like League Cup, League Challenge updates or whatever up kind of thing. But most of my content will come from streaming. And again, check out Luke's videos, and like he's the bomb. I watched a lot of the stuff before Worlds, so just like get base lists and tinker with them. So, good resource here, guys. So thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you guys for watching. Check out Flipside Gaming and use code CELIO, all caps, for 10% off of your next order, $10 or more. And like Rahul said, be sure to subscribe to him on YouTube and check out his Twitch, The Flea with 4 E's. And your YouTube, is that just Rahul Reddy?
Yeah, it's just my name.
Okay, cool. And I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.